a maximum of 5 minutes. We ask.
All right, welcome, Watchers of America this week. I'm Matt Taibbi, and this is
I
Walter.
am Walter Kirn. Yeah,
and we are experimenting a little with some campaign coverage. This is the official or quasi-official beginning of the campaign season, and I'm going to turn down the volume on this C-SPAN broadcast for a second. So obviously a lot has changed in the presidential campaign calendar. What you're looking at is looks like a Boone County caucus event in Iowa, but this is the first tangible result of the campaign season, and amusingly, we already have a result according to the Associated Press, which called the election for Trump about 5 minutes before we just went live. So that's interesting, Walter. Is that a surprise to you at all?
Did they call it using results or exit polls or observation or what?
So there are results already. Let me see what's been updated so far. So Polk County, which is Des Moines, that's already that's only got 55 votes, and I'm not sure what they're going off. But there are a bunch of counties that are in, and it's only 1,189 total votes, according to the Times tracker. I'll actually share the tab. This is what it looks like.
Okay.
So we have some actual results.
Right.
But they're not terribly. I mean, 1,100 votes is not a lot to go on if you're calling the entire election. The only thing I think what they're doing basically is they're going on the fact that they have some results from pretty much all over the state, and they're extrapolating. But it's still hugely early to do that.
Matt, if you could put that back up, because
Sure.
Unbeknownst to our audience, I have deep geographical and demographic knowledge of the state of Iowa. My wife,
really?
Yeah, I grew up in Minnesota. I have a wife from eastern Iowa. I have spent time as a reporter there, doing travel pieces, not political pieces. And so when I look at this, I see Cedar Rapids, Des Moines, and western Iowa right there by Omaha. And so they've got the cities.
Yeah.
And there's not much more to that in terms of urban Iowa. There's stuff along the Mississippi that they don't have. They don't have the Quad Cities yet.
I don't know where Ames is on here.
Well, Ames is in the middle. They've got a sort of random square of corn country up there in the north.
I mean, everything's a random square in Iowa.
Oh no, come on.
I apologize, Iowans.
My deep demographic knowledge will tell you, Matt, that Iowa is one of the most diverse states in the union. It's one of the states that has an actual Bohemian ethnic subculture.
Really?
Yeah, from Bohemia,
right, from the actual Bohemia.
yeah, part of the Czech Republic now, I guess, or something. But looking closer, I think what they're saying is that they've seen a similar, probably proportion in places that are slightly diverse in terms of, cultural, urban, and so on.
Yeah, I mean, if he's already pulling, let's take a look here. I mean, the Polk County result, again, it's only 200 votes, so,
Right.
But, that's a good result for Trump in Des Moines.
Right.
But, so this brings us to the kind of overall sort of odd comedy of the situation. There was a flurry of activity today with Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis kind of furiously boxing one another out. Like that rare situation in which two centers in the NBA are actually going for a rebound. And the subplot here is who's going to come in second. And Yeah, there were all these rumors for weeks that DeSantis had this secret ground game. This is the kind of stuff that just always goes on in elections, that the sort of media generated stupidities. But it doesn't look like that's going to materialize. And now the issue is going to be how bad or not this blowout is going to be, and who's going to come off looking worse at the end. If I'm reading this correctly. By the way, just to make sure, first of all, thank you everybody who's showing up. Can everyone hear us all right? We're all right technical wise. If you're a commenter, please give us a thumbs up or not. But Walter, what do you think? Is second place? Is that what we're looking at here?
Well, it looks like there's going to be 2 second places if trends hold. Haley and DeSantis are fighting it out for the 20% or something. I've watched all day as the fake suspense has been wound up, and they've done it in various ways. One is that if Trump doesn't break 50%, that means he's underperforming. Of course,
right.
Underperforming according to standards that they then set. Not his own or any real ones or the parties or anyone else's. They need to keep this thing going. There are television ads to sell and all sorts of other things. But DeSantis and Haley look tied. Ramaswamy isn't even on the projection.
So
list.
yeah, let me. So Ramaswamy, he's not doing. 8% so far. Yeah, that's not nothing,
No, it's not. He too has been teasing an overperforming narrative. He's going to shock the world. That's not shock the world numbers.
No, not yet. No.
And Ryan Binkley is outperforming Chris Christie and Asa Hutchinson, which is, I think, the big news.
Chris Christie with the whopping 4 votes. What was that headline? In Time, the elephant in the room. Remember that headline?
Chris Christie is the elephant in the room.
That was awesome.
Watching the last couple of days and the news, besides the fact that Vivek was predicting he would outperform, and Ron supposedly has a secret ground game. In a prairie state, a ground game is hard to keep secret. Anyone
right.
flying over in a small plane can see the ground game. So let's see what else. Hey, can I just call the whole Republican primary now?
Yeah.
I mean, like right on until the convention.
Yeah,
we might want to be the first to call it for Trump.
Let's do the ridiculously premature call.
On the basis of one town in Iowa, I feel it's time. I've seen enough, and I can call the Republican presidential nomination for Donald Trump. But so now Rick, Nikki, and Ron can combine their percentages and still not reach what we have in front of us.
Right.
In fact, Nikki, Ron, and Vivek could combine and still not have it. If we're looking at really premature results here, but if they stayed what we're seeing, his next 3 supporters don't equal him.
Right. Maybe that explains
3 rivals.
Maybe that explains some of the cheekiness today from him. Might as well show this. Trump today, he was on The Truth, as he calls it, on the campaign trail. Before there was Twitter, there was The Truth. There was no truth. Now there's truth.
Vivek used that truth in practically the same font as his campaign logo.
Mm-hmm. Did he really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yes. But it looks like the bromance is kind of kind of dissolving a little bit, or else maybe this is for show. Who knows? But Trump did a little bit of ball stomping today, just a little, and
I mean, it is pro wrestling, right? I mean, you can't say there's one of my rivals who I especially like. He's sort of like me, only younger and a little bit more articulate.
Right.
Don't vote for him, please. Vote for me, but I love the guy. That's not going to happen. I mean, I expect nothing less than total enmity toward all who would confront the emperor.
Yeah, I mean, you can imagine where Trump would go. Well, if Trump really didn't like Vivek, you can imagine where he would go. But he's not doing that. One of the few things you get when you see candidates in person, because there's not a whole lot you can actually glean, but I do get the sense that Trump has a genuine and intense dislike of DeSantis, as opposed to Nikki or even Hillary from the past. Something about DeSantis drives him up a wall, so I can imagine the gloat factor is going to be kind of high tonight.
Well, DeSantis has pledged himself in politics and perhaps in life to the steady on approach, which is the very opposite of what Trump has done in life and in politics. But also, I do think he felt betrayed by him. Florida is his home. He feels like he got him the governorship.
Yeah, I mean, he went on and on about that. He's been going on and on about that in each of his events. I mean, it was so funny. He was nowhere. He was dead. And then I reached over and I pressed a little button, and he kind of with this agonizing slowness.
Jesus would have been pissed if Lazarus had turned on him, right? Hey, this guy who's on the screen right now, Ralph Norman. I saw him earlier. I don't know. He seems like a hunter who came into a bar. But in any case, I Pick Nikki, their button, is one of the worst I've ever seen. I Picky Nikki. Like trying to do assonance with Pick and Nikki.
Picking Nikki? Oh, is it?
It should be I Picky Nikki.
I Pick. Well, people saying your mic is too low. See the little thing, your little screen.
It's been that way for 30 or 40 years, and nobody's fixed it. I do think there's a good chance.
Do you see that?
What's that?
People are saying your mic is too low.
Oh, okay. I'll turn it up. Damn.
There we go.
Okay.
Is that better, folks?
Okay, I'm talking again just to test the mic.
Yeah, that might even be a little high, I think, right?
Okay. Yeah, it's flashing red.
There we go. I think we're good.
Right.
So, obviously, folks, why is C-SPAN on the screen? Because it's not terribly legal to go and watch MSNBC or CNN and live comment on that. But I think by the end of the night we should see some video, or within a certain period of time we should hear from some of the candidates or their aides. But I'm expecting this to be ugly and on the gloating side, and I'm really curious to see what happens from DeSantis, because this might be it for him, frankly, right? I mean, what happens if he does really, like, what if, where is he now? Let's just take a look. He's in third now. He can't be fourth.
Thanks, Ralph.
But
thanks, George.
I think he's got to get second to really stay in this, don't you think?
We will have
I have no idea. I guess it has to do with money, how much he has, how much he expects. It probably also has to do with party considerations at some point. The party wants a rival probably one rival for Donald Trump, and probably pretty quickly. I would guess the mainstream party.
Right. But-
And if he isn't catching fire, they probably, there are signs that they like Nikki.
Well, I mean, Nikki's even been getting Biden donors. So I think it's pretty clear where everybody is on that now.
Here's Marjorie Taylor Greene wearing UGG boots.
Oh, let's listen to Marjorie. Hang on a second. I'll turn it up.
It feels really good to me to be here with you all, because you are just like the folks I represent at home, and you feel like friends and family. So this is easy for me. I'm here to ask you to vote for my favorite president, our former president of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
Is that Curtis Sliwa?
No, that's his girlfriend.
I don't have to, because President Trump has a 4-year record that we.
Wow, did you see she matched the 4 to the numbers of fingers?
We trust President Trump.
That was fantastic.
You know, it's weird. There are a lot of Southern accents tonight. It's a lot like being at a Cracker Barrel.
I have to tell you, economy we had under President Trump. I know it was only a few years ago, but under President Trump, Americans could afford food. Americans could afford rent.
There's a platform.
Afford gas. And you know
You
what?
can't afford
We
to
also
eat
have
now.
low interest
I
rates.
promise you will
Remember
be
that?
able to eat
But
under my
inflation has
administration.
driven interest rates.
Trump
Driven
2024,
to a point
food.
where inflation
You know,
is
it'll
hurting
probably
so
come
many
down to that
Americans.
too.
The
People
rich
are
have
like,
gotten
man,
richer,
food
the
costs
middle
too
class
much.
is going away, and the poor getting poorer.
Oh, people are asking
President Trump
for
will
higher
bring
volume on
America's
Marjorie's, so
economy.
hang
He
on
will
a sec.
fight for America First jobs, and he will restore America's economy exactly the way it needs to be. And I have to tell you, I'm a small business owner. I came from the construction industry, and that really means something to me. And that's why I relate to President Trump, because he comes from the same industry. We need President Trump. He's a successful businessman that looks at the federal government the exact same way we should be looking at it. We need to run the government.
Look at the
like a
comment we got
business,
here. Hang on a
not
sec.
like a failing corporation that's going bankrupt.
My comment is, I wouldn't.
President Trump also
You
gave
know what?
us
Get rid of
world
that. Hang
peace.
on a sec.
And that is
Only if
something
I
that
couldn't
should
afford
mean
food
so
and I
much
had to
all of
steal
us,
it from
and
her.
does.
Yeah,
Under President
food.
Trump,
Hang on.
the little dictator from North Korea stopped firing off rockets. Remember that? Remember when President Trump walked across the DMZ line with his hand extended to shake hands with Kim Jong-un? All of America watched, and the entire world watched in astonishment at his bravery and courage. Under President Trump, we ended Middle Eastern wars, and he defeated ISIS. That's something we should all be proud of.
He did?
Under President Trump, we had the Abraham Accords, and we watched in awe, and I know we're so proud that the U.S. Embassy was moved to Jerusalem. That happened
With
under
good
President
commenters.
Trump.
Food 2024. Exclamation point.
There would be no war in Ukraine. And that's something that means something to
Mo
me,
cheapo,
because
mo-
I've never
mo
voted
cheaper
for a penny
food.
to go there. There should be peace in Ukraine.
Bring
Under
TV's feet
President
up.
Trump, under
All right.
President Trump, there were only
Volume-wise,
two genders.
or?
Remember that? Male and
It
female.
looks like it's centered,
And
right?
we didn't
Isn't it?
have men trying to beat women in women's sports. And we need to restore those values. We need to be able to stand up for kids. Kids should never be brainwashed. And under President Trump, he would
Who brainwashing?
sign my
That should be
bill
the
into law,
other
the Protect Children's
button.
Innocence Act, to
Mo,
stop
mo
children
cheaper food and no
from gender
brainwashing.
genital mutilation surgeries.
Food and no
brainwashing
brainwashing.
children that they can
Yeah.
change their gender. That should never happen in America. And this is something President Trump wants to fight for. And we got to kick the boys out of women's sports. And President Trump will stand up and do that. Lastly,
Okay.
and most importantly, under President Trump, we had a strong, secure border. I serve on the Homeland Security Committee, and I have to tell you, What we've seen happen to our country under Joe Biden should never happen. Over 10 million illegal aliens have come into this country. 1.8 million gotaways. These are people we don't even know who they
What are gotaways?
where they're from, and where they're going. But
People who didn't register in some way when they crossed the border, who didn't,
like to attack
you
our
know,
country
sign their name to promise to appear in 7 years or something.
By the Hamas terrorist over there. We have to fight for a secure border, and President Trump will do that, and he will start mass deportations on day one. And I can't wait to see it happen.
Matt, okay, let's stop for a second here.
All right, hang on. I'm just gonna turn it down. Hang on.
Be here with you guys in the most cold temperatures, and I'm from Georgia. I don't like that very much.
Number one reason I'm glad we have C-SPAN on is that their camera people don't try to flatter the audience. They'll just remember how Trump said it doesn't matter if you feel you're going to die afterwards, get out to the caucus and then expire on the way home.
Did he say that?
Yeah, he did. And it looks like some people took him literally. Who's this guy?
Thanks again, Marjorie.
But Matt, what's going on here? Have they not voted at this caucus yet? Is that what's?
I think we should give.
I don't know. No, everyone already caucused an hour ago.
So they already voted for Trump, presumably, and yet they're still trying to wind them up about Trump.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm not. Let's see what this is. This is a.
Senator Jesse Green.
A sec.
Jesse Green is running for a re-election bid for District 24, the Iowa State Senate. Jesse, you want to come up and say a few words?
Yeah, we can move to a different. Let's see what else we got.
So you don't get to go home after you've gone all the way to your.
Federally funded. It's thanks to the cable and satellite companies that.
Yeah. I mean,
democracy doesn't just look like this. It looks like this, where Americans can see democracy at work.
Boy, C-SPAN to get a new ad agency.
All right, now we got some VO here, so that means some journalism happening. Hang on.
Analysis as this caucus unfolds is Kirn. She is the director for women in politics at the Iowa State University and a professor there. Bob Beatty's also been with us this evening, the political science chair at Washburn University. Kirn Kudrowski, the Associated Press and other networks have already called this race. There's only 3% reporting at this time.
Oh, it's just 3% already. Okay, hang on.
Got their votes in, but the CNN and other networks have called this race for the former president, Donald Trump. What do you think about that when here in Boone County, they haven't even put an X next to somebody's name?
Oh, they haven't?
Well,
okay.
The precincts that would have reported already just an hour or so into the process would have been those that were probably in smaller rural areas and where they would have had potentially fewer speakers and fewer people to check in and, overall just, fewer participants. So they would be able to move through the process with greater alacrity. If the Associated Press and CNN have called the caucus night for Trump, it's because in those early
CNN called it too. Hang on, let me look.
They would have seen a commanding lead on behalf of the former president.
Bob Beatty, your reaction?
Oh, my reaction is this. It shows how different this is from a general election. Normally, the network.
Yeah, in general elections, they only wait for 1% of the vote in Arizona to call them.
As you pointed out, they haven't even got to the voting yet. But the caucus is.
Oh, okay. This actually is interesting. Let's hang on a second. I'm going to turn this off for a second.
Don't give a darn about.
So let's go to this other screen.
CNN projects that Donald Trump will win the Iowa caucuses. CNN can make this projection based on his overwhelming lead in our entrance poll of Iowa caucus goers and some initial votes that are coming in. The former president pulling off a huge early victory in his bid to return to the White House. Trump easily defeating his top opponents, Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley, who are now in a high-stakes fight for second place. Let's go to Aaron Burnett at the panel. Aaron, not a surprise, but still, this is the earliest I can remember ever calling such a thing. CNN projects that Donald Trump.
So,
what's with the stars? It looks like the shoulder of a Chinese general's uniform there. They're doing some subtle programming here. I mean, my goodness, look at that thing.
Well, you know, this all started.
Chairman Donald Trump has pulled away.
Down with the four olds, and Trump has won. You know, this whole like, let's fill the screen with stars and shit. That was
right.
like a. Where did that all start? I think
probably Fox. I think Fox led. Well, I mean, Fox had. If you ever compare them, like listen on the radio to the Fox news feeds versus the CNN and MSNBC, uses far more sound effects and you know, strange neurological stimulation. So I think they probably were in a arms race with Fox to have the most gaudy sets, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of reminds me, there was a great British spoof of TV magazine shows called Brass Eye, made by a comedian named Chris Morris, who he made a really funny movie called Four Lines. It doesn't matter, but his whole shtick was that he did basically like a TV magazine show, but he added 400% of the graphics. So every time, you know, there was like a spinning thing, like it would go on for, you know, way too long, and there would just be more like superfluous stuff on the screen, more cryons, like there'd be like progressively less and less space for the anchor's face and stuff. But that was like 25 years ago, and now it's true. If you watch cable on any given day, it's almost like the anchor has to tilt the face to get around all the stuff on the screen sometimes. I don't know, but I do like it on Campaign. I mean, I guess I fall for that. I like it.
Yeah, I mean, I want fireworks, though. I think they should cut away to a fireworks celebration.
like texting Happy New Year or something like that.
Well, so Dan Scavino, one of Trump's advisors, campaign executives, tweeted tonight to the delight of the hardcore, Q supporters, that this would be the shot heard around the world. That this is Lexington conquered tonight. And that isn't being expressed here on CNN. They should have fleeing Democrats or something.
Right, Bruce Serpentine running away from the gunfire and
stuff. So how are they going to keep this going now that they've called it? The high stakes, the quote unquote high stakes race for second place, I think more accurately should be described as the low stakes race for second place.
Yeah, this is really the Kissinger quote come to life, right? I think the politics in academia being so vicious because the stakes are so low.
I've always said the same thing. College theater is the most vicious, political infighting I've ever experienced because the stakes are so low.
All right, we now have.
Hey, by the way, that's a Brian Stelter tweet.
I know.
Apparently, no love lost. There's Brian retweeting the people that dumped him, right?
Right. Yeah, that pushed him out into the cold hard world.
Yeah.
Pushed them out of the gates of Fob Liberty into downtown Baghdad. But he's still tweeting.
So in the micro horse race that we're watching here, DeSantis has pulled ahead of Nikki in the high stakes race for second place.
He has. Now, what does that mean? I mean, it is a little tiny bit interesting either way, because the sort of remaining suspense in this race is if Haley can actually pull off New Hampshire. through hook or crook.
By using Democratic voters.
Yeah, or whatever it is they're doing, right? But coming in third, coming in behind DeSantis with all the media adoration that she's gotten in recent in the last month and a half or so, that's a pretty bad look for her. If she ends up down 5 in this race, like let's say, I think that would be pretty bad.
Well, so we talked about the Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley town hall or debate last week on Normal America this week, and I thought she did pretty poorly, to be honest. And I saw her this afternoon as I tuned into C-SPAN. She's a monotonous speaker, and she has that
horrible.
She has a gift for sounding like she doesn't believe a damn thing she says until she gets to the subject of her donors and fundraising. No, I'm not kidding. That's the only time she seems animated and authentic. So I don't think she'll wear very well if she is the second horse going forward. But we have been conned into thinking, or I mean, we've been massaged into thinking that she somehow represents the threat that Ron wasn't able to pose. Doesn't look like it.
But I mean, you got to be able to prop yourself up a little bit. Now, the interesting thing is, if you look at the head-to-head national polling, and I'll find that right now as we're talking, but she does poll better against Trump in a theoretical general election.
You mean against Biden?
No, against Biden. Then the other two. Let's see. So I'll share this right now. This is 538.com. There was a CBS News poll pretty recently, so she's at +8 against Biden in a theoretical matchup where the other two are basically tied. DeSantis at -3 or +3, Trump +2.
Can we stop for a second and say how meaningless this kind of polling is at this point? I mean, there are only going to be 2 candidates,
right?
In the end, so it doesn't represent very well what will happen then, because people who might vote for Haley will probably vote for Trump, probably break for Trump, I would think. And it doesn't mean anything as far as the primaries go. So what is it? It's some kind of thought experiment that's used to, once again, keep things interesting when they're not.
Yeah, I think this particular kind of poll is used to raise money. And it's fodder for Democrats in particular, right? Like it's fodder for people who don't have any interest in who aren't like actual real Republicans, because the reason it's not representative is because the poll doesn't show the necessity of winning the Republican nomination.
Right.
Like that's not figured into the question. So, the only time I think this kind of stuff is meaningful is when you have a candidate like, for instance, Bernie Sanders, who was, the criticism of him early was that, we got to win. Right. Yeah. But then you looked at the numbers and he was very viable theoretically. Right. His problem was always going to be winning the Democratic nomination. But you're right. I mean, this doesn't really mean anything at this stage.
And when I look at these, I call it the Velveeta factor. I go, Haley versus Biden, she does better because Americans don't really like conflict. And she's the closest to Biden somehow. The person who's actually going to present conflict seems to do worse in this because, once again, Americans don't like the idea that there's going to be fighting at some point, but there's going to be, and there always is when it comes down to 2.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, my children are about to burst through the ceiling there. So this is obviously a great result for Trump. You know, the rumor was that he wasn't going to do super hot in this particular caucus. That he didn't win it, I believe, in 2016. Is that right? But
well, I can't remember. Did he or didn't he? Was it who was it? Was there Rick Santorum back then?
Yeah, I think it was Santorum. Hang on a second.
And that causes me to reflect that there isn't a big evangelical candidate in this.
Cruz won it. Sorry,
in this race. Okay.
Yeah.
None of the top three. I mean, Trump is Trump, but the other two aren't beating the fundamentalist Christian drum very hard. Maybe somebody's leaving something on the table by doing that. I don't know. But it suggests to me that Trump, who was supposedly betrayed by evangelicals in the 2020 election, who didn't come out to vote for him in the numbers that they might have, or has kind of wrapped up that group, that there's no edge in appealing specifically to them right now in the Republican primaries.
Yeah. Trump he's tried to work as much God as he can into the speeches, but that's just not who he is, right?
Right. But he's done it in a strange way, because, you know, I spend time in the fever swamp of right-wing media. I find it really interesting. And it's not that Trump pretends to be godly, but a lot of his followers feel that he was chosen by God. So he doesn't really have to talk the talk, because for them, he walks the walk in this sort of permanent sunbeam of, you know, sort of mosaic
favor.
Leadership.
Right. Yeah. Well, this is, I mean, it is kind of funny. What an anticlimactic thing to tune in to find out see the results come in and have it be over already. And it just underscores the absolute absurdity of these other elections that we're going to go through in primary season and in November, when, you know, it'll be, you know, we'll get back to you in a couple of weeks. You know, about
cable news abhors a vacuum, and so micro stories are going to fill whatever space that the lack of big stories presents. And, you know, the big story would be, is there a serious challenger for Donald Trump? And there isn't.
Right. So hang on a second, where are we? Let me show you the New York Times has a handy dandy graphic of forecasting the race for second.
This looks like the speedometer of a McLaren.
I mean, right?
The instrument panel of a McLaren car. Okay, so what does that first thing say, supposedly?
The first thing
that's the race in general.
Yeah, that's the general race. And by the way, this graph has been like this basically statically for the entire Republican primary season. DeSantis at one point was closer to 30, but apart from that, it really hasn't changed. There's just been Trump and a big gap, and then a bunch and some other people.
It could be argued that bringing Nikki in was a mistake. If you're a party hack, he should have had one. He should have had one challenger, and soon he will, I suppose. But maybe he should have had one from the because if you had tonight be, you know, Trump at 50 whatever and somebody else at 40 something, you would have had a race.
Right. Yes, and this is what helped him, and they made that mistake in an even worse way in 2016 when Marco, Kasich, Jeb, and I'm trying to think, and Cruz, for various reasons, could not drop out early. Marco did a little bit too well in Iowa. You know, he had the whole Marco Mentum thing. Kasich was all ready to bow out. He used some kind of like weirdly profane comment before the New Hampshire race. It was something like, "I'm getting ready to fuck off somewhere," or something like that. And then he comes in second in Iowa. Now he can't drop out. Jeb had $150 million behind him. He couldn't drop out. And Cruz, ultimately, he won Iowa and he was in second place. So that gave Trump a situation where he really only needed to win 30% of the vote to win the primary season. He ended up doing better than that. But this situation, it feels a little bit similar. There's not going to be enough distance between either Haley or DeSantis to get either of them out, and so that's just going to make it easier for him, I think.
So here, looking at this
speedometer.
Who put up the speedometer?
This is the Times, I think.
This is the Times. So this is the Times version of CNN's,
stars and shit.
Yeah. Bright light set. And looking down here, tilting Haley and perhaps DeSantis. The forecasting the race for second place. And let's remind the audience that in 2016, the Times had a dynamic poll about Trump's likelihood of winning the night, which was something like 80 or 90% against him until like an hour before he won.
Right.
And so these things are to be taken with a grain of salt. But I'm going to predict, contra the New York Times, and just completely out of my butt, that Haley and DeSantis are going to be almost dead even at the end of the night. Because why shouldn't they be? I mean, they are a human coin flip. Okay.
Right.
I don't really know the local issues in Iowa that might have aggregated to one or the other, but they are a human coin flip. In fact, you could have a Halloween costume that has a DeSantis mask on the front and a Haley mask on the back.
Well, that's what Noam Chomsky said about the 2000 election. He said you can't get a statistical tie in an election like this unless people are voting for something that matters absolutely not at all to them, like they're voting for the presidency of Mars or something like that. Otherwise, you could not possibly get a perfect statistical distribution in that way. But yeah, I mean,
there's not even a blonde brunette, a breakdown on this one.
Yeah, I don't see.
There is a male-female breakdown, however, and maybe this will. Afterwards, let's analyze whether the difference between Haley and DeSantis represents the gender division of those who showed up for the primary or for the caucus.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Haley is a distinctly unlikable candidate, and I thought that about DeSantis too the first time I saw him. But she makes him look, approachable. I don't, but we'll see.
Yeah. So my big contrarian contribution to the evening is that I think if there's a 57% chance for Haley tonight, and that represents, that proportion of votes over DeSantis, she's going to get a little less than that reflects. I wouldn't be surprised if DeSantis comes in second.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. Let's listen into some a little bit of journalism here.
How do they get the job of being a counter? I would guess that it's literally one of the precinct captains or a chair saying to their neighbor, "Would you please be a counter? We still need 4 counters." It's that sort of thing. We're seeing this in the video. This is the point of a caucus.
Curtis again.
His girlfriend. That's his girlfriend.
It is a gathering, which makes it so unique.
She can put you in a
they're going away.
chokehold
In
and
the Democratic Party, they're getting fewer in the
cut off
Republican
the
Party.
oxygen in your
What
carotid.
makes Iowa so unique
Let's
in
not make fun of it.
states that
This
still do the
woman
caucus.
is the very heart and
Karen,
soul of American
Jesse,
politics.
these
People who are
counters,
willing,
they have
people who are
any
willing to do this.
accountability in this role? Do they have to sign their name? How do people in Iowa, the folks that showed up tonight, how do they know they can trust these counters?
Because
they're also from Iowa. You can trust everybody from there. That's my answer.
Through some sort of orientation or training from the state party, but also these are folks who are just their, friends and neighbors, people that they would know and be acquainted with. Again, these are pretty strong partisans if they're spending the time to come out when it's 30 below to to cast a ballot at a caucus. Whether or not there's any other sort of verification process would be depending upon the state rules, and I'm not sure what those are. But another stopgap is that there are 2. And so those people, have to work together.
Is this true here? Hang on.
And it's also a stopgap there to make sure that nobody is stuffing any ballots, shall we say?
D. Martin, do you mean both? Both?
I think he means, or she means, DeSantis and Haley both spent $100 million there.
Not
Dude,
anyone, but it's up to the
good job, Iowa,
chair
soaking
of
the
that county
city
who's
slickers,
running this again.
getting them to spend $100 million each in your state for nothing.
Absolutely. I would soak them for every last dime if I could,
Observers who stand or walk around, but you'll also
well,
have international observers. You will have.
I don't think we're going to see a Trump speech or anything like that for a while. So maybe we'll just hang out for another 10 minutes or so and see if.
Matt, I'll hang out for another damn hour. I think this is fascinating. I mean, okay. I'll hang out as long as people are still putting little comments up. Let's look at how they count. I want to see this carefully.
Right, there's some discretion from the folks that are running this.
So you're able to show partisanship because that guy has the Trump hat on, even though you're a counter.
There's 7 precincts in this room, and it looks like counting is underway for all 7.
So I'm a little confused by this because I don't remember there being ballots at the caucuses previously, but I guess
dude, that kid is dressed exactly like Mini Trump. Wow. Way to go, kid. See, I grew up in the Midwest, and I love these people. I really do.
Oh, yeah.
Precinct 2, I believe. This is the precinct.
I have to say that the analog in New England, this sort of wizened, old, tough New England lady, that person scares me a little bit, having grown up in like I'd much rather tussle with the townies from Lowell or something like that, than deal with those women who stand in the doorways of Brighton or Alston with their smoking Pall Malls and just sort of sneering at people. Those women scare the shit out of me.
With those nutcracker faces.
Yeah, exactly. Like it just wizened, right? Like that
primary process, meaning it's one party, the Republican
attitude. But they're much more genial in the Midwest for sure.
Right, and they try to do their jobs as well as they can. And there's a lot of people who are going to be apologizing to each other at these tables for did I bump your knee? Over politeness is the soul of the Midwest. I like Mini Trump there. Look at this guy.
Mini Trump is great.
Yeah. And the guy next to him has a kind of like Peruvian, poncho on that I haven't seen since 78.
Yeah, that looks like it's a developing friendship.
Right.
So this is a look I see a lot with young women now, which is the ski hat and bulky sweatshirt.
I like
Is that
this
what-
guy. I like this guy who knows there's this giant camera and he's just going to chomp into his big, dessert right there.
I love boom mic guy.
Okay, so one underappreciated fact about Iowa is that here we got Iowa State University and Washburn University. It's full of colleges and pretty good ones too. A lot of small colleges. It's the home of the ACT test. It's a education first state. It really is. It has always taken itself very seriously as a pillar of democracy and citizen participation. I'd be willing to trust them with the whole damn thing, frankly. I really would. I mean, they don't represent a huge, diverse ethnic.
Yeah, that's kind of my only reservation about them. I mean, but you're right. I always find them like a kind of a fascinating interview because the average Iowan has personally met like a dozen presidential candidates. They're very experienced with this stuff. They know what questions to ask. They know how to ask them in a way that the candidates can't sneak out of it. And they're very, because they've seen so much stumpery in their lives, they're very good at sniffing out who's good at it, who's not good at it, what candidates they like, which ones they don't, for what reason. I guess sort of the same thing is true in New Hampshire, but in Iowa, I think you're right that there's this kind of Midwestern rectitude thing that goes along with it, where they really take the civic duty aspect seriously. New Hampshire, you find a lot of people who are, they just want to live in the woods and don't want you to come near them.
Yeah.
That's kind of more of a thing there,
especially on the right, the Free State movement.
Yeah, exactly.
People are at home brewing their own currency.
Right. All right. Let's see.
Wow, we've seen almost the whole count go forth here.
Let's listen to the count. This is what I mean, though. This is. Oh, hang on. Let's listen to this.
There were some discrepancies in what was reported by the precincts and the numbers that were eventually put out by the Iowa Republican Party. And then it turned out that there was a recount, and it seemed that Rick Santorum won by a very tiny number. So initially they had announced the wrong person who won, and then with the recount ended up having to walk that back. As far as I know, the Associated Press has not called an official winner in the Republican caucus in 2012 or in the Democratic caucus in 2020. So those remain officially unsettled.
It's unbelievable to me.
Is the party feeling pressure tonight, Bob Beatty, to get this right?
I think so. I think there's quite a bit of pressure because of what happened to the Democrats in 2020, and the memories of 2012 for the Republicans are quite bitter. Rick Santorum, who ended up winning, says, basically his whole campaign might have changed if he'd got that momentum coming out of Iowa that night. I
don't think so.
From the looks of this one, this one vote, if this is what's happening across Iowa, I think the Republican Party is going to be pretty pleased. What they want to be careful about is the actual reporting to their main headquarters, because those are the numbers that everyone's going to get. And there can be mistakes from the numbers they have in an individual county versus what ends up getting told to the wherever the central receiving area is. And that's how the Democrats got in trouble in 2020. They did not have a really good system to get those numbers.
Yeah, no kidding.
They had a pretty good system for obscuring those numbers, is the way I'd say it.
These votes
Right.
At the table.
There
this is interesting.
A phone app that they will use to send the results to the state party. But I think that there's also a very robust backup system.
But this is what I mean, though. I mean, like,
people can phone in the results. The Republicans, I'm sure, have learned what.
Obviously, they're doing it with ballots here. What I've seen in the past is, just sort of physically moving people around in the gym. But
right,
you see how fast they can come up with a result.
Right.
And
dude, and I loved it. There were people with their cell phones like recording this, counting as though, to police it. They were standing. You have the ability to walk up to any table with your cell phone and record them doing it. I think that should be nationwide.
Well, but that also tells you where people are in terms of how much they trust what might or might not happen after the polls close.
Right.
I mean, I just don't remember a time when the sentiment that I don't really trust the results to be counted correctly being this widespread.
Right.
And I was in DC on Saturday at the Free Palestine protest, and to watch. And Cornel West was there, Jill Stein was there, but you hear the same thing. It's not just the conservatives; it's on the other side too. There's
of course
widespread widespread concern that there'll be cheating.
Okay, so thank you, C-SPAN. There we saw from sitting down to stacking the ballots and putting them in a Ziploc bag, the entire, 1/5 of the entire count at this precinct. It's done.
So why does it have to be complicated? This makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
Right?
Because there's no money in uncomplicated, and there's no leverage in uncomplicated. You can't push it around. They all finished at the same time. Mini Trump and the guy who spent time in South America are hanging.
Well, that's a good question that was just asked there at that table. Do we sign this?
All right, let's see where we are with
no water main breaks in this high school cafeteria or hallway.
Apparently not.
There you go. The Ziploc bag it's not over till the Ziploc bag is zipped, and it is.
So we got 4% of the vote in. Let me turn this off for a sec here.
I think we just saw 1% of it counted.
Yeah, exactly.
That was the longest a lot of people have ever watched C-SPAN, but I found it fascinating.
No, C-SPAN's great. I love C-SPAN. I mean, they do a great job of what they do, I think.
I was one of the early journalists to sing the praises of Brian Lamb, who founded C-SPAN. And he never forgot it. He had me on when I published a book on one of his book TV chats. And
nice.
Yeah, very grateful for that. It's like Zen Buddhism, C-SPAN, So Trump's pulling away. Ron DeSantis, as I predicted, is slightly ahead of Nikki now. I wonder what the little tachometer is saying.
Oh, here we go. Even more. 31% of the votes are in.
Okay, so Walter, the prophet, is hanging in there with his prediction that Ron's going to beat Nikki in the low stakes race for second place.
So these results are coming in fast and furious. We might even actually get a full-blown answer pretty shortly.
Yeah.
Well, we just saw that 3% more.
Yeah, we just saw a process that was repeated everywhere pretty much at the same time. Iowa zip-blocked its bags at the same time, and now it's just calling them in.
Right.
And it's unfair to call Iowa not diverse. In fact, ethnically, if you drive across it and you go around it, it's not North Dakota.
No, and certainly it, also it's got a big university town.
2 of them.
Is it 2? Yeah, I guess
Ames in Iowa City.
Right.
And Des Moines is one, really. It's got a bunch of colleges.
Yeah. I guess you're right. I mean, it's not Louisiana or South Carolina, but it
is in the North. It is in the Midwest. It's not an industrial state like Illinois or Ohio, but some viewer put up a little note to us that said that Joy Reid, over wherever Joy Reid broadcasts, was saying that Iowa is too white and Christian.
Right.
Maybe in her mind it is, but it is not, one big vanilla ice cream vat. It really isn't.
So this whole thing with the shenanigans on the Democratic side with New Hampshire and Iowa and who's first, I think it's kind of an amazing story. For the National Party to tell New Hampshire that its votes aren't going to count. It's just an incredible power move. I mean, and also you figure in the fact that the incumbent, that's a bad state for him. It just reeks of manipulation. I mean, I guess they're allowed to do it. It's their party, but still.
Can I just be super cynical here?
Mm-hmm.
When is the National Party going to reconcile itself that its almost record-setting front runner is going to have to be embraced at some point? Why is it because politics is now such a business that these consultancies and ad agencies and other places just wouldn't have anything unless they kept this thing going? I mean, is it kind of a money laundering operation? Because I look at this, and every time I look at it, I go, wow, when your next 3 opponents aren't equaling you, why keep it? Why prolong the pain?
Yeah. I mean, the only answer you can give to that is the one that Hillary gave in 2008. Remember when she stayed in the race after it was mathematically impossible, or basically for her to win. She starts talking about RFK and other candidates.
Well, but you see, weirdly, that's part of why this is going on, because there is some betting against Trump's ability to remain the candidate. And DeSantis became explicit about that. And I'll be here to pick up the body or walk over the body.
It's like, it's morbid, but
yeah. I'm going to declare this, in the spirit of cable news, making a big deal out of stuff that isn't. The story of the night is that Nikki didn't really do anything.
I think, well, there's still time for her to eke into second. So,
yeah, but even if she's second, it's not. It's a statistical second. It's barely a second that matters in terms of sentiment or momentum.
It's true. It's true.
They're both going to claim victory, and then some kind of deal is going to have to be made.
Yeah.
Or victory in the second place race. I mean,
what are all these people who've been writing these Haley Surges pieces and could she do it pieces? I there've been a lot of them. I mean, I'd
There
say
really have been.
like 15 or 20. Like, you know, a lot of these features have been written, and they've been based really on not a whole lot. They've been based much more on DeSantis going down than on her going up. And what are people going to say now? I mean, if she's been spending money, she's been very visible in Iowa. And this is not a good result, you know?
I keep reading all these stories about, you know, confabs on Wall Street. We got to get behind Nikki and so on. They're supposed to be good investors. What's going on? I mean, they just bought a turkey, as far as I can see.
But Walter, this is the same story we've been reading like over and over and over again since 2016. It's like, you know, Mark Momentum, or you know, Kasich is the real candidate, or
So I have a serious question.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any benefit in spending a lot of money on a losing candidate?
Financially, as a write-off?
Is it a total loss, or do you get something for it? In other words, you know, if you open your checkbook for Nikki or Ron, and you know you have a lot of bucks. There was this Robert Bigelow from Las Vegas who was at one time DeSantis's biggest contributor. I think he gave him $20 million. Is that just like completely gone, or do you own something forever after?
You own that candidate forever after,
and does the party in some way feel, you know, here's a big spender, we're going to listen to this person going forward?
Like, you get comped at the hotel for the rest of your life?
Yeah, I mean, no, even in Vegas, when you lose a lot of money, in the process, you get stroked. You know, you get a free dinner and a nice room and so on, but you're out on your butt afterwards. I'm just thinking, like, okay,
yeah,
the thing, the wheels just spun.
They just spun again.
Yeah,
a little Vanna White action here.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it looks like Trump just bumped up slightly. DeSantis is up 1.3, right?
And listen, hey, Matt, we're at 39%. We've gone from 3% to 39%, and the ratios have changed barely at all. I said last week on our show that I saw a focus group, I think it might have been CNN, at the DeSantis Haley town hall, and this focus group had followed this, had been on this cable network for every town hall, 5 of them or whatever, and they kept polling them to see who had changed their votes over that period, and none had.
Well,
they're making more of stasis than has ever been made of it, with this whole deal, and I actually think this can be true going forward in the primaries.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I mean, there's been absolutely nothing to suggest any kind of drama at all, and they've just sort of tried to create it out of thin air. And this should pop the balloon, but it won't.
But the reason I asked the donor question is, what rational case can be made to a rich person to spend $1 more on Ron DeSantis or Nikki Haley, let alone?
Because it's always a good investment to buy politicians. You get them,
but you're buying, in Nikki's case, somebody who isn't even in office.
Yeah,
Ron DeSantis, you're buying a little bit of the future, you know, the current governor of Florida, and that's it. So what's it worth?
It's worth a lot. These people end up somewhere, and you own them forever, and you get access to them forever. So, you know, you think about maybe last time around, maybe in 2016, you spent some money on Ben Carson. Well, if you were in construction, that was a good move, right? I mean, like,
I see.
Politicians are cheap. You don't have to spend a ton of money on like people they will come and perform debased acts for $40,000, and they will be eternally grateful. There's nothing else you can buy that cheap. I don't think that's worth as much.
Well, that's true in the case of normal political situations, because second and third placers get cabinet positions and so on. But I don't think Donald Trump's going to have anything to do with Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley once this is done.
Right. Well, at least he's going to owe you as governor of Florida.
Right. I think from the pure graft perspective, I'd be putting money into Vivek because he probably has a place in the administration.
Yeah. Sorry, we're being asked about the Oasis, and it's not Des Moines. It's Story County. It's just north, and it's only got a little bit of the vote in. So, Polk County, that's still a pretty good result for Trump. 41-30-20.
Was that the one we just saw? No, Polk is Des Moines.
Polk is Des Moines, yeah.
So there's the big urban area.
Yeah.
More diverse in terms of its demographics, I suppose. Got a lot of
sorry, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Oh, and a vibrant service economy. I mean, people forget Des Moines has a lot of insurance companies and capital city type law firms and things like that. So
yeah, there was a commenter before who was asking why I was hesitant about the idea of Walter, you mentioned you'd be happy letting them just sort of set the tone for the whole thing. I had absolutely no problem with Iowa, and also not a problem with the diversity issue. It's just that the optics of it raised some questions for some voters.
I mean, it was said in jest, obviously. Iowa doesn't want Massachusetts to choose the president. Massachusetts doesn't want Iowa to do it. California would like to have a word with both. I think it's great that it's spread out across the land. I said that only as a humorous comment on the thought that the people look kind of honest and they don't look like they're out to put over on the rest of us.
It's uplifting to watch the whole thing. I mean, as cynical as you can be about presidential politics, I always think Iowans are fun to watch during this time period. They're really tough on the candidates in these meet and greets. They make them go through these gauntlets of community meetings, and they do a good job of this, of getting all the right answers out of people, and they think about it, and I think it's uplifting to watch, because so much of the rest of the process is just such clear. It's just mechanized and unfeeling.
And in their sneaky Midwestern way, they go home with hundreds of millions of the city slickers dollars. They just quietly, the diner can, cruise for another 3 months through winter.
Yep, absolutely. Oh, did we get more? No, we did not. Okay.
Yeah, it's. Can we see the tachometer or the that thing again?
First of all, I'm sorry, New York Times, but fuck you. Like that's just really lousy, graphics for the campaign. Like,
but also, I'm noting that even though we've had a lot of results since I looked at it last time, we've had some. The Haley and DeSantis race for second place needles have completely swapped. DeSantis is now at the 57% likelihood.
Oh, he is.
That Haley was at before.
Oh. Perhaps Haley tilting DeSantis.
Yeah.
Unlikely Ramaswamy.
Right. A little note on statistics. Unlikely Ramaswamy. He has a negative 1% chance of second place. What?
How do
you arrive at that? I mean, I'm sure that's real, but negative 1%.
Yeah.
Does that mean like the world will implode or something, or time will run backwards or something if he gets it?
Yeah, I'm not sure. We got to go back to this for a second. Hang on a sec. Chris Christie is under one.
Has
less 17 votes.
It's less than 0.1%.
Yeah. That's kind of amazing with somebody with his name recognition. So this is NPR. Hang on a sec.
But it's weird. That was the percentage that caused people to be scared of COVID.
That's
a little less than 0.1% chance of getting sick.
That's right.
Around there. We now know exactly how many relatives Asa Hutchinson has in Iowa.
Or mistresses.
Yes, exactly. 67.
Or both.
Yeah.
Oh goodness. This is actually, sorry, this is an interesting question.
Over 100 votes for Chris Christie?
I mean, are you betting the over or the under on that?
Oh, is that a bet we can make? Or
yeah.
Well,
I'm going to bet the under.
I think people are grateful he dropped out and willing to vote for him as a result. So, okay, if you're a real nerd about politics and you're always on Twitter and social media, you will have noticed that a lot of the conservative or independent influencers have been real strong for Vivek lately. A lot of the podcast types, how can I put it? Independent thinkers of X.
The heterodoxers?
Scott Adams and so on. Mike Cernovich have really been pounding the Ramaswamy drum. It seems not to have been heard in Iowa.
Yeah. I'm not exactly sure what it is that he's done to offend the electorate, because he seems like a sharper candidate than 7% or 8%, but yeah, I'm just
gonna pull out of my butt yet another observation culturally about Iowa. I think they like older people there, and from the looks of the people who went to the caucuses, they're older, and he might just be a little too young for them.
That's right. Yeah, that's probably true. I can't think of who the last genuinely. I mean, Santorum is the last person who you would
the last whippersnapper.
Yeah. Right. I mean, is there any other candidate you can think of
who was young?
Who won that race? I don't know.
There's not many candidates who are as young as Vivek who've been involved at a very credible level for a while. I mean, the guy's 38 or something.
It's true. Well, let's see what else we got here.
will we be breaking any laws if we flip back to CNN for a second?
Let me see if I can get CNN or MSNBC. I mean, yeah.
Or have we already gone over our fair use budget or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, let's see how if they decide to be douchey about it.
Well, look, I think they're looking at this and they're going to continue to shove Donald Trump's 3 judges on the Supreme Court down his throat because they've made a decision, and we've seen this in how
see now, MSNBC, they do it right. They got the whole building at red, white, and blue.
Right.
Protect abortion rights against Donald Trump, who said, sort of to his credit, because it's a recognition of reality.
Is that Jen Psaki?
I think so. I'm not allowed to ask this. Yeah, something changed.
But they will paint him as for the abortion ban. That is exactly what they will do. I think if they're sitting here watching all of this, it's a little counterintuitive because normally if you're on the other side, especially an incumbent, you want the primary to go on as long as possible so they can fight each other out and kind of spend a lot of money. And Joe Biden is actually being helped a little bit by this because in New Hampshire, where people thought,
I feel bad for Chris.
How does she know what's helping Joe Biden? I mean, he's the least popular president in memory, according to recent polls, and something's secretly helping him.
They want this to be a clear race.
Yeah, I can't. What incumbent since LBJ has been in more of a free fall?
Yeah.
I mean, again, I was at that huge protest over the weekend, and he's got a gigantic constituency on the left that is calling him Genocide Joe and wanting to
He's
kick
like
him out of the
LBJ.
race.
He's
Right.
like LBJ.
To win stuff, so he's going to be very, very excited to go out and be like, I won, and look how big I won, and he's going to read off all his poll numbers and all the counties he won, right? But it also is, I can be.
God, they just don't. They don't have any.
The mystery that is Chris Hayes.
I feel. Look,
Dude, we should
used to be
parachute
friendly.
in.
I know. What? We should what?
just parachute into this set, or take it over like the Ecuadorian gangs did the other day. You saw
What
the
did they
cartel,
do?
You saw some cartel monsters took over the main TV station in Ecuador on the
Awesome.
air. It was like the Mousy Tongue Hour in Network.
Oh, that's so great. Right?
But I just want to jump into this group and like tell them to move aside, take their chairs, and
I want to do like the sort of flip over roundhouse kick to Saki, you know, like Robert Stack in Airplane.
I love Rachel Maddow there in the center, appearing to study. You know, while the others have these vapid and irrelevant conversations.
She's looking at her bank account. She's trying to count the zeros.
Former president who's sort of playing the role of an incumbent who's at 52, which means that there is room for something else. Now, the something else's are the other guy who passed a 6-week abortion ban, Ron DeSantis, and the guy who sued Disney, or Nikki Haley, who says she's also willing to sign a national abortion ban. So there's only slight degrees of difference between the alternative.
So they're trying to keep the whole second place thing going. That's what I see here.
Even in a state like Iowa, for something other than Trump.
I don't think they think there's an
You're
opening
just
in
so
Iowa.
fucking boring.
I mean,
Right.
there's like 100,000 more.
The woman in the middle is having a hard time agreeing with both sides fast enough. Her neck is going to break.
It's got like a Pez dispenser. It's just gonna.
Republican primary race. Does Trump? I mean, 49% is not.
I just can't get over the whole.
Psaki's saying 49% isn't enough.
We don't know yet.
Really?
The Biden team, once you start to get to states that are actual swing
This
states,
is true too, by the way.
Really interesting question.
This point about the Biden campaign and how Democrats are feeling about these results and how the general election is shaping up, we actually have somebody to talk to who may know something about this from the inside. The National Democratic Party, of course, last year decided to drop the Iowa caucuses as the first in the nation contest for the Democrats.
To screw Kennedy.
Ending 50 years of the Iowa caucuses being first for the Democrats. In Iowa this year, Democrats will choose their nominee in a primary that's going to be conducted by mail-in ballot. The results will be released on March 5th on Super Tuesday. That means the Democrats are not contesting the Democratic presidential nomination in Iowa tonight, but Democrats are not really contesting the Democratic presidential nomination this year in any significant way.
Big
And that means
mistake.
that Democrats right now are essentially very interested spectators watching what's happening with Donald
What does
Trump and the rest
what
of
does she mean by that?
in Iowa. And
They're not contesting. They would contest if they were, if they had choices.
joining us now from Des Moines is JB.
It didn't make any sense what she just said. Okay. Oh, here he comes.
And he's in the catbird seat tonight for the Biden-Harris campaign, watching what's happening.
A Pritzker?
Governor, it's great to
Yep.
see you. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight.
Great to be with you, Rachel.
So we had a quick call tonight, a quick projection from our network and indeed from other networks that Donald Trump was going to be the winner. Looks like he is going to be the overwhelming winner tonight in the Iowa Republican caucus.
I want to know what
From your
Pritzker
work
makes
as
of
an
this.
advisor
How
to
they
the
spin.
Harris campaign
Oh.
and as a Democratic governor in Illinois, what's your reaction to that news?
Well, I think Joy had it right. Almost half of the base of the Republican Party showing up for this caucus tonight voted against Donald Trump.
Oh, Lord.
This is the most
Dude.
famous Republican. He's
Okay,
the guy
can
who
we stop?
Basically built the modern Republican Party.
What in the hell? That is an extreme piece of sophistry.
People in that
That
party didn't vote for Donald Trump. So I think that is.
Hang on, I gotta find a way to
Wow.
turn this off. Hang
Wow.
on.
Donald Trump. And
That's
all
like
of
saying I'm 150 pounds, and
if
that
the
means I'm
people
100.
turn out for
You know,
Donald Trump in the
I'm
general election enthusiastically, and Democrats.
Yeah,
turn out
I
in
gotta
this
turn off the
case,
volume here.
this
Hang
is
on.
all about,
and I'm halfway on my way to 300. You know, pounds. Sorry. Okay,
Sorry.
so half the people did not vote for Donald Trump tonight. Like less than half, and Pritzker's counting that as a win.
I mean, that is
Their own network announced it earlier, probably than they ever have. The AP announced it earlier than they ever have. And it's a loss. The Democrats are going to have to do better than this. Really. I mean, they want to create a narrative around Trump that he doesn't have the support of his own party now.
Well, you brought this up in a tweet today. It's like, is he the most incompetent, clueless person in the history of politics, or is he a burgeoning,
the greatest foe we've ever faced,
right?
That our democracy has ever faced.
And as you say, there are people who will say both things at the same time.
Right, right.
And you know, dependent on situation, and that you can see that there's absolutely no mental obstacle to saying these things.
But,
you know?
but here is the cluelessness of the mainstream media. They just brought on a billionaire governor, of one of the largest states in the country, to say that Donald Trump didn't get 100%. Shows there's a problem,
right?
Or something. And Rachel Maddow took it seriously and listened to him, and didn't laugh out loud. These people are clueless. They're living in the land of clueless, and every narrative that they've been launching has either boomeranged or gone splat, and that wasn't serious. None of that was serious.
It's just so frustrating. It's so short-sighted. There's no attempt to try to. I mean, if they were being serious, they would say, "Okay, Donald Trump's been indicted 1,000 times in the last year.
Right.
He's facing massive legal challenges. He's being sued under the KKK Act.
He was impeached twice.
He was impeached twice, and he's got this this J6 episode on his resume that for a lot of candidates would be disqualifying, and yet he has flip-flopped his approval rating from 34 to above 50 in the last 3 years, which is the fault, I would say, almost entirely of the people who can't stand him, because they've lied so much.
Of the people we just saw.
Yeah, the people we just saw.
They represent Donald Trump's greatest asset, and they can't see it, or they can and aren't allowed to say it. I don't know.
Or maybe that's part of the racket.
The great game, the 5D chess game. You continue, Matt. Next week, these same people will be, or maybe tonight in 2 hours, we'll be talking about the unprecedented juggernaut, and they'll be spinning that negatively.
We have to cancel elections immediately because threat, right?
So according to Pritzker, you who are fearing, Trump is cruising to victory can relax, because he only got slightly over half of all the people in Iowa,
right?
Of all the Republicans in Iowa,
right. Despite the great gobs of money that were spent by his rivals, and despite a relative blackout on Trump news-wise, at least in terms of anything that could conceivably be construed as even neutral.
Okay, I don't get it. We're now, a lot of time has passed. We ramped up to 39% of the votes at one point.
And we went down to 38.
Now we're at 38, and nothing's happened. Was it a red mirage, Matt? Has everybody miscalculated?
The red mirage. Oh my God! I thought I had forgotten that forever.
Is this that moment in 2020 when everything sort of stalled, and then the spike happened?
Yeah, this is the Doctor Who moment.
Right.
By the way, that's great. That's like one of the great all-time introductory theme songs with that slamming bass line.
I think the answer of whether Chris Christie is going to get over 100 is no. He's at 16. Any basic statistics class will tell you that the likelihood with almost 40% of the votes coming in of someone going from 16 to 100 is really low.
Yeah, I think that's a safe bet. That under
Ryan Binkley is in 5th, and I think Ryan Binkley was my driver's ed teacher. Pretty good.
Oh man, yeah, I remember watching in the 16 cycle. This was the same week as when Trump said that whole thing about how like people who weren't captured. Remember that?
Yeah, I think I do.
But I was in a park in Ames, Iowa, and Christie was there, standing by himself, waiting for people to come talk to him. And it was the saddest thing. Like, there were a couple of journalists there, and they were trying to keep their distance a little bit, not to like make it conspicuous that nobody was coming up to talk to him. But I thought that was a big, a significant moment, because even a year before, this was the person being hyped as the big crossover phenomenon, and he's a non-entity nationally, right?
So Matt, I'm going to go on X or Twitter, because we find ourselves becalmed, and with at 38%, and see what the hardcore politics people are saying. Okay. Is there something I should look up? I can switch to that. Well, let's first of all see what the Republicans are saying. Let's see what Bill Kristol, the guy who just went for Nikki Haley, who's coming in 3rd, is saying.
Bill Kristol?
His big clout endorsement in the last few days of Nikki Haley. I mean, yeah, she's not going to come in 2nd. She isn't.
Hang on.
Let's see, Bill.
There you go, Bill.
Is this legal to just go on people's Twitter feeds like this?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. 52 minutes. Oh, wow. Look at him. Look at him trying to make a silk purse out of a cow's ear. So he's saying that in 84, Gary Hart only got 17% in Iowa, and just days later, he surged to defeat Mondale. So, in other words, that could happen with Nikki, is what he's saying. It's that magic 17% loss that turns into a near win that might happen. Okay.
Oh my God, look at this. As another competitor in that 1984 race, like to say, keep hope alive.
Right.
Bill Kristol tweeting, keep hope alive. Somebody's
Kristol.
going to end up turning over in his grave over that.
Can you imagine having a command?
Here it is again. Look. Sorry, go ahead.
Of so much trivia that you can clutch at straws this adeptly.
That's right. That's right. So here he's got Pritzker's line. It looks as if almost half of Iowa Republican primary voters voted against Donald Trump.
Voted against him.
Yeah, let me see if there's more of that. I bet there is.
And Nikki Haley came from under 5% a few months ago to a likely second place finish. Well, even the New York Times isn't calling it a likely second place finish anymore, Bill. Secondly, Dream On.
Here we go. Hang on.
I wonder if there are going to be any charges of Trump corruption in this race tonight, like a scandal that he sent out some horrible mailing that scared Nikki people. Okay, there he is. Wow, that is the most handsome, dashing picture of DeSantis I ever saw. That briefly
made him look like Josh Brolin a little bit in that one.
Half of the Republicans in Iowa voted against Trump tonight. See right there, assumed identity.
Yep.
So assumed identity is a bot, obviously, and that means that is there's some shop somewhere that's pushing out that meme on X. Nearly half. Okay, that's
Mario, yeah.
Haley climbs to second in Iowa poll. That was yesterday.
Yeah.
So we're seeing, as recently as yesterday, the Washington Post with bated breath talking about a second place finish for Haley, which I predict she ain't going to get.
Yep.
So even their false hopes are wrong or dashed.
Weird, we haven't had any new results in a bit.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
it is weird, isn't it?
Oh, here we go. I know it's just 1%. Hang on.
Water main break.
So they're predicting 16-4-4 delegate split.
Who's that People's Pundit guy? He's like Rich Barris.
Rich Barris?
He's a pollster. He's a Republican pollster who is always, vying with Nate Silver or fighting with Nate Silver to say that he's far more accurate. I want to know what he's saying.
Do you know what his I'm not seeing his what his handle is?
The people. Oh, wait a sec. He's called at Peoples_Pundit. He's a pretty good barometer of Trumpian Republican polling.
All right.
So basically what he's saying is what we've been saying.
Yeah.
100 Republican donors are hundreds of millions of dollars less rich. And Ron DeSantis got crushed. The credibility of so many has been obliterated.
The DeSantites. We're lying.
It is true that Ron DeSantis was saying there was a big surprise. I think coming for
a big wedding.
Yeah. Oh, let's see. First-time caucus goers. Trump, DeSantis.
Oh, should we listen to that? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's go over to Fox. I mean, Fox is the Republican channel. Let's watch it.
Yeah, let's see.
They're also fit to be tied, I'm sure. Because I think Fox was pretty heavy on the Haley. Was going to pull it out side.
God. Sorry, I gotta.
Well, actually, what that thing that's stuck on the screen there, first-time caucus goers, Trump, and then Haley sort of outperforming with them, maybe means first-time caucus goers, aka Democrats who decided to go vote in the Republican caucus.
Right. Sorry, I gotta get the right. I have to sign in.
Somebody just tweeted, I guess Zero Hedge, the bomb-throwing Twitter account, said, "Do we have to wait until 3 a.m. for the Haley mail-in votes to come in?"
They did tell me they had representatives at all 1,700 precincts tonight. They call them caucus captains. They said they had one at every single precinct in Iowa tonight, and they're confident they got their message across to Iowa voters. Now, we've repeatedly heard DeSantis say that, quote, "we are going to do well tonight." We've asked them, well, what does well mean? They haven't answered that question directly. Well, you get the sense that they want and they need a strong second-place finish here in Iowa behind Donald Trump. The reason being, they went all in on the Hawkeye State. They
got 65%.
They got the endorsement of the popular
on Fox,
in Iowa, and they knocked on nearly 1 million doors in this state. So right now, we're just waiting for these results to come in.
Times is going backwards.
With Nikki Haley for that second place
for Haley.
Back to you.
No.
All right, Bill, thank you.
For percentage.
Panel, Kellyanne Conway and Carl Rove now joining us.
Carl, I want to see what Carl
overall
says.
Take as you look at the night so far.
Well, first of all, it looks like we're going to have a very big turnout. I've been watching the New York Times. When we had like 42,000 votes, they said that would be 38% of the turnout. We're now at a grand total of about 74,000, and they're saying that's only 32% of the turnout, meaning that we'd beat the previous record of 2016 of 187,000.
Which is pretty amazing considering this cold.
This cold. The second thing is this battle for second place is seesawing back and forth. Again, the New York Times keeps doing this little arrow pointing one way or the other.
Okay.
And they early on in the evening it was Nikki Haley, then it switched to Ron DeSantis, and 2 minutes ago it went back to Nikki.
I mean, you're
Haley.
like Britt Hume now. You're citing the New York Times. You're going to go with the betting app?
Yeah,
pretty
the
soon?
betting app. Yeah, no. I'm gonna,
Ooh, that was a little Brett Bear humor there.
They're trying to forecast what is left out there, and
You can buy a book of it, probably. Everybody on Fox has a book.
But if you look at it,
The coffee table book?
through now is heavily to the east, and a large part of the west, particularly the north.
I love it when Carl Rove talks like Alan Greenspan.
Is not yet in, which suggests that Donald Trump's number is going to continue to grow.
So, Kellyanne, if the Nikki Haley campaign really needs to get urban centers, suburban communities, Iowa City, University of Iowa, those whole precincts to turn out, there's anecdotal evidence that they really tried to get independents and Democrats to register as Republicans to be a part of this caucus. We don't know what that number is, but she's clearly outperforming in that moderate group.
Sure, and underperforming among Republicans and the so-called MAGA group, non-college educated evangelicals. Look, this is no way to win a Republican nomination. It's clever. I guess her argument is I'm expanding the party. But, and she's the one who said, I got to go to New Hampshire so that they can correct what Iowa does. So I guess she'll be there tomorrow. But look, I give Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis they do. They're going against the behemoth here, Donald Trump, and they're carving out different niches. But I think Sandra Smith's data just showed the point. It told the tale. If immigration is the #1 issue 8 years after Donald Trump came to Iowa and was called every name in the book for elevating the issue of immigration and border security. And now it is the #1 issue, followed closely by the economy. Two, the twin pillars that voters here think Donald Trump could solve again because he did it the first time. I have to ask, though, in all seriousness, what was the purpose of this exercise? If you're Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley, but particularly DeSantis, I think he's been a great governor of Florida, but he's basically been a resident of Iowa. They put everything here. His campaign and super PAC have spent 9 figures. We spent 9 figures against Hillary Clinton in the general election. They have spent 9 figures.
Ouch.
And yes, if he comes in second or third, it's still a very distant last. And I don't think he'll dominate in any one big group. It shows you that the people who didn't run this time, a lot of senators, people like Mike Pompeo, did the wise thing, because you can be there supporting the party, helping these down ballot candidates, helping the eventual nominee, and wait until 2028.
So
I would say that that it was good that we have a contest here, and it's good that we have future contests as Republicans. Everybody gets to be either a better candidate or worse candidate. And if President Trump is going to be the nominee, better that he go through a contest where he is challenged than to be given a free ride to the
that's a
nomination.
little
He'll be better.
clever little dig at Biden there.
How unpredictable are things? The New York Times now says that 84,000 votes represents 3/4 of what's likely to come in, which would project a 120,000 person turnout.
Okay, so
we're in unknown territory.
We're waiting for President Trump to come out.
No,
And
I'm going to turn this off for a
cut away to
second.
that as soon as that happens. But Carl, with regard to, you think about all the time.
Hang on, go back to the Times results here. Hang on.
Okay. Fox's coverage is better than MSNBC's.
Well, they actually talk about shit a little bit.
They said a couple of things that are actually kind of interesting. This is record turnout for caucuses.
Right.
That means big time enthusiasm for a candidate who was predicted to win. In other words, people who already expected Trump to win still heard his bugle call and came out in huge numbers.
In bad weather too, by the way.
In terrible weather. So actually, that might be the story of the evening. That there was record turnout for a guy who was already thought to be a fait accompli in terrible weather. So, contra Governor Pritzker, I'd say that Trump showed an enthusiasm tonight that he's on his way.
Yeah.
I mean, we had the weather that Iowa has today. I'm in Montana. We had it yesterday. Dude, I don't want to go across the street. Honestly, it's terrible. It is freaking harsh.
No, absolutely. I'm just flabbergasted. I'm sorry, I'm flabbergasted by the MSNBC coverage. All they do is they're just on message all the time.
Yeah, no matter what. No matter what.
It doesn't matter what the topic is. It doesn't matter the situation. It doesn't matter whether the news is breaking in their way or against it.
And they're supposed to be smart people. They all wear glasses and
right.
Rachel went to Oxford and etc. But they're drinking their own Kool-Aid way too much.
Yeah.
I guess they figure their audience just can't stand anything that looks like complexity in this anti-Trump, crusade.
Right. Yeah. It's pretty incredible. Well, I don't know if there's anything.
78%. DeSantis is still beating Nikki, so she didn't come in second. She isn't going to. And record turnout in freezing weather, and Trump took over half. That's not only a blowout. If you're on Wall Street, you'd say there's a lot of enthusiasm and momentum there because of that turnout.
The only thing left is that New Hampshire had a couple of polls that showed Haley very, very close. And New Hampshire's a funny state. They've had a lot of surprising results over the years. So, you have to take that possibility seriously, but right. I mean, Trump spent most of his time in Iowa really emphasizing the idea that you have to come out, like no matter what you think might happen or not happen, we need you to come out. And that tells you that I think you're right, that he's still got the ability to turn out his people, even when they're not heavily incentivized to do so, even when the weather sucks.
And they all assume he's going to win.
Right. So
they're not sitting at home going, let somebody else go out in the cold. They're going out themselves. Okay. I don't think it's appreciated how bad this night is for Haley. She's not going to come in second. She would have to portray herself going into New Hampshire as having momentum. This doesn't allow her. I mean, she can say anything she wants, and she will say that, but it doesn't mean she has any. Plus, she's a pretty dull figure. She's not the kind of person who's going to ignite enthusiasm that she hasn't already ignited, so.
And she's not quite creatively shameless enough to pull some stunt between now and New Hampshire. I mean, remember the Hillary crying thing? That was genius.
Right.
After I came completely out of the blue. And you couldn't imagine Hillary Clinton crying. The only thing that comes to mind is that old Hunter Thompson joke about how, Nixon couldn't laugh at anything except a quadriplegic who couldn't reach high enough to vote Democratic. It was hard to imagine Hillary Clinton crying about anything, but she managed it, and it actually turned that race into a race. I don't see Haley coming up with something as
DeSantis is going to come out of here factually saying that he came in second. She won't be able to say, but my third was really close. That's not a claim that, causes people to rally or to think that you have momentum. But the weird thing is that the enthusiasm for Ron seems to have been waning, at least as the press portrays it. And so he's in this strange situation where he seems to have been abandoned kind of, by the Bill Crystals and so on. At the same time, he is the factual second place finisher here.
Right.
So it's he's lost the intelligentsia, such as it is, of his party. Or I don't think we're going to be surprised down the line. We're not going to be. This is actually as good evidence of the fact that things are going to stay the same as I can imagine.
Yeah, so I think the three big conclusions we can come to: very bad for Haley, a very good night for Trump, and DeSantis stays alive a little bit. Like he's still in it technically.
Right.
It's not a great result for him, but third would have been a killer considering how much effort that he put in.
But in the last couple of days, I've been hearing, DeSantis is going to quit after Iowa and throw his support to Haley. And remember, that was Ramaswamy's big theory, that they were going to team up soon. He said the other day.
Well, yeah, that could happen. I mean, I still have those Ted Cruz and Carly Fiorina flashbacks, but
I think people are going to stop showing up is what I think is going to happen, except for Trump.
Christie got 4 more votes. He's up to 29.
Right. That one big tip he left at the Hyatt Regency is paying off.
$9.60. Let's see. All right, so I think this is an interesting result. I mean, it's a big win for Trump, horrible for Haley. And should we make a prediction? I think they're going to undersell how bad. You're right. I think they're going to undersell how bad this is for Haley in the coming days.
Well, they're confused because they thought they had something there, and maybe they didn't expect her to seriously challenge him. But even if DeSantis and Haley team up at this point, and I expect that if they do, they'll actually lose support as a whole over the parts. In other words, if I'm a Republican and I'm looking at this and following this race, and I'm not sure about Trump, I just got surer about Trump because these other people are running on electability and they haven't done that well. So,
yeah, and I think yeah, we're going to see a lot of these.
I like this person. I don't know what flag that is. All things considered, I'm pretty impressed that nearly half of the Iowa caucus.
That's not Ukraine?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They have a Greek. I think isn't that a Greek name or word? Nearly half.
Yeah, I think nearly half is going to be the cliche for tomorrow. But,
well, we now have the glass half empty, glass half full results in.
All right, so we got 85% of the votes in, so it's over basically. Well, we can. All right, do we between now and the show later this week? Should we predict what we're going to see in the headlines? I think we're going to see at least one nearly half story in the Times Post.
Yeah. I think if they think about that for 2 hours, they're not going to dare do it. That's the same. That's the kind of thing that comes out the night of, but no serious newspaper can.
Are they a serious newspaper? Well, I guess.
But I mean, no unserious newspaper that wishes to be perceived as serious is going to go with the nearly half thing.
Yeah,
I think they're going to say Trump appears headed for the nomination.
You don't think there's going to be crack show and Trump coalition, that kind of thing? Trump new vulnerability in Trump I don't think they can say that. There's nothing they can say.
No.
Oh, okay. So now that means they're going to go the other way. Inevitability of Trump presidency.
They're going to start moving heavily to the scare tactics that we saw in the NBC story yesterday about the public interest groups that are preparing to keep him from using the military against his enemies.
Right. That's right. They're going to go that way.
Yeah. Trump's army appears unstoppable, but will democracy survive?
Well, yeah. Will democracy survive? Okay. I'm going to write this down.
Yeah.
So, Trump unstoppable. Will democracy?
One thing they have a kind of gift for is saying the opposite of what they were saying a couple of days before, and I think they'll now act like it was never any contest, and we have to. It's
always in hand.
Yeah. It's irresponsible to keep paying attention to this horse race when the real threat is that this juggernaut could topple NATO.
You're right. Yep.
Let's stop being distracted by the details when the real, threat is Godzilla is loose.
That's right. So Trump is unstoppable, and we're going to have to do something to save democracy.
Yeah, stop fooling ourselves. The nature of the great battle is clear. The threat is dire, and to worry about who's second and who's going to, maybe get to be his VP is just dithering before the hurricane.
Right. I'm going to go ahead and guess, in hindsight, inevitability of Haley failure was always obvious. That something like that.
Haley, what happened?
Haley, what happened? Okay, right. Yeah. This is good. This is fun. This is like being an editor, but like in backwards.
Right.
All right.
Well, I think they're going to also make something of the fact that Nikki really did run as the, neocon. More than Ron, didn't she? I mean, didn't she run as the muscular foreign policy person?
Yep.
And that's not popular right now in the Republican Party.
Let's just take a brief last gander as we sign off here at Bill Kristol.
I don't want to sign off. If we have the attention of one half of one viewer, I want. Yeah.
No more from Bill Kristol. Doesn't seem like.
Bill just sort of gave it up there. Let's see what Rand Paul has to say. Remember, he started a Never Nikki organization 2 days ago.
Well, Rand Paul's been kind of interesting lately, I think. This is somebody, I was pretty harsh about him when he ran for the Senate the first time. And he's been, he said some interesting things, especially in the last year. He's been really good on the disinformation stuff. But
tough on the COVID truth stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see.
Doesn't look like he's.
Yeah, he's not gloating yet.
Yeah, he's not gloating yet.
How about Donald Trump Jr.? You're on replies, not.
Well, that way you see everything.
Oh,
yeah.
I was told it was the greatest team in politics, or something like that. LOL.
Yeah, it's Cernovich saying staffing your campaign and online influencers with 2015 Never Trumpers was not, in fact, not a good electoral strategy.
This is the thing I love. When they go from sort of fake suspense to total, fatalism afterwards. Everything was inevitable. All the drama that they created 10 minutes ago, they act as though it didn't exist.
I know. They've been doing this that thing we said yesterday. We didn't say that. That's like been a staple since 2016, the cycle. I mean, I guess they probably always did it, but now it's just routine. But well, in any case,
so Trump's going to speak soon. Somebody said,
yeah. I got a jam, unfortunately, because I gotta put the kids to bed. So,
I could prove I have no life by just sitting here for 4 more hours.
You could.
No. Well, Matt, I think we've said twice as much as there is to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
And at least as much as the others have said.
Absolutely. Wait. Oh no, I see. Okay. Well, folks, thanks to the all the folks who turned out. We had a pretty good crowd here tonight, and this was fun, Walter. I actually enjoy watching the returns come in with you. I think this could be a thing we could do.
I'm perfectly willing to do it again for New Hampshire. After which, I don't think there's going to be much of a.
Yeah, probably. Well, I mean, Super Tuesday might be funny, might be interesting, but we'll see. We'll see.
Okay.
Folks, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Walter, thank you for coming on tonight. I know this was a late notice, but this is interesting. The campaign's heating up, and this is an interesting result. Let's see how our predictions turn out in terms of the journalism stuff too. That'll be fun.
Okay. See you soon, Matt.
All right. See you soon, everybody. Take care.